said, hi Selena, hopefully you can send me or put me in the location of the file for this, this item number 4, because it's not showing on iCompass.
There was no attachment.
So do you want me to answer him?
Yes. Yes, please, and I'm just going to ask him if he's...
He's using the PowerPoint?
Okay, we are live streaming.
Are we, Lou, what's with the mask? Are we still on mask?
No,
Sorry.
sorry,
Sorry, I
just
didn't-
because I went behind you.
No, he's being messaged right now. He seems to...
Is he, oh, I'll let you message him about the item as well.
Welcome back, everyone. Time is now 7:37. I'm going to call the meeting to order, but we're just waiting. We just have one of our councillors came off the line, so we're going to bring him back on. But I will start this meeting as we do all of our meetings by just acknowledging that we're gathered on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish peoples, specifically the Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations, and that their connections to these lands continue to this day. And of course, this is being live streamed for those at home, both live but also available for later viewing attached to our website. I'm going to hold it at this point and just wait for Councillor Zelka to come back online. Hopefully we can get him back here in a minute. Wrong number. Well, I think we can manage the council minutes and mayor's remarks, and then we can move to public participation period while we're waiting as well, if that's amenable to people here. Just want to move this meeting along as where we can. So the first item up on the agenda is the council and committee minutes. This is just the December 7th minutes for approval.
Move approval of the December 7th minutes.
Second. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Are there any corrections, additions, or changes to those minutes? Don't see any. I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. My mayor's remarks, I wish they were longer now so I could fill up more of this time as we wait. Hopefully we'll have Councillor Zelka back in a minute. Unfortunately, one of them...
Announcing participant.
Oh, good.
Eric.
Welcome back, Councillor Zelka.
Oh, thank you.
We've just called the meeting to order and have adopted the minutes. I'm just going to make my mayor's remarks. So item number 2 on the agenda. But I will give you a chance. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes that you wanted to see before we move on?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So item 2, mayor's remarks. I guess 2 very quick things. First, especially since they're on the line with us here, just congratulations to the City of Victoria. Never easy running an election, especially a by-election in the middle of a pandemic, and everything went very smoothly. And I just want to congratulate them on a very successful process. But more importantly, I just want to acknowledge that this is our last official council meeting of 2020. I want to have just acknowledge that it's been a difficult year for a lot of people, and just want to express my appreciation to both our staff, from the exempt staff right through to people doing the work daily in our rec centers and our parks, etc., and all of council for all the hard work this year. It's been a tough year, but a lot of work put in, and really just I think the community feels a real sense of appreciation for being able to keep our services and our work here at council going, and the municipality in good hands. So thank you everybody who's put in the extra hours this year to get us to where we are. That is all of my comments. Up next, we have a public participation period where we're inviting the public to call in. I would invite anybody who wishes to call in to 250-598-3311. That's 250-598-3311. I recognize that I'll just give us a minute in case anybody does wish to call in. And if we don't hear anybody, we'll move on to the next item in the agenda. The public participation period is a standard part of our council meetings, where you can call in and talk to council about issues related to Oak Bay. And that is continuing. We have on our agenda today adoption of the new procedures bylaw, which will move some of these practices over to the committee of the whole and rejig things around a bit as well if that passes. So that'll be in the new year, however, not right now. Ms. Williams, has there been anybody calling in at this point?
No, Your Worship, no callers.
Okay, and no registered that registered ahead of time?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, we will move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the City of Victoria All Ages and Abilities Cycling Network. We have Ms. Webb here to provide a presentation and a number of other staff available, Mr. Belafontaine and Ms. Jenkins available as well for questions. I do want to get through this in a way that provides ample opportunity for the presentation and questions. So I'm thinking we have upwards of 10 minutes, if that's desired by the city, to present their presentation. Then we'll take a couple of minutes each if people have questions or clarification or comments following that before we move on to other items on the agenda. And with that, I would just like to welcome Ms. Webb to our meeting. Welcome, Ms. Webb.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'll first introduce my director, Philip Belafontaine, the Director of Engineering and Public Works.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, Your Worship and Council, and thank you for providing us the opportunity to present to you tonight Victoria's All Ages and Abilities Cycling Network. I'd also like to thank your staff as well, both in engineering and ledge services, who have helped make the arrangements for tonight. So just for the record, a couple of introductions. I'm Philip Belafontaine, Director of Engineering and Public Works, and I'm joined tonight by Sarah Webb, Manager of Sustainable Transportation Planning and Development. Before starting our presentation proper, I wanted to give a couple of minutes of background and context, both for Council and for those of you who are listening in. So we're here tonight as a result of a letter that was received from Oak Bay Council at the end of June regarding Richardson Street, where the city is planning to introduce an all ages and ability bike route. Victoria City Council, as part of its deliberations on the next phase of our bicycle master plan priority network, passed a motion at that time that this correspondence should be received for information and directed staff to present to Oak Bay Council so that we could answer any outstanding questions before the project is tendered for construction in 2021. And so here we are tonight fulfilling the intent of that motion. As Your Worship has mentioned, I understand we have about 10 minutes to present, so we'll do our very best to keep to the clock. And our presentation is covering 3 broad areas, starting with a brief introduction and context setting on Victoria's cycling plans in terms of what the Bicycle Master Plan Priority Network within Victoria looks like overall, why our council has identified cycling as a priority, and in particular the priority network, but also how it is nested within a larger change in mobility, policy, planning and priorities in the region. The middle part of our presentation is going to focus on the Richardson Street corridor itself, covering why Richardson Street is on our priority network to start with, what the design features are for the corridor, and how Victoria has moved to the design treatment that we have ultimately had adopted by Council. Now, while Richardson Street is the particular reason for us being here tonight, we've also want to take this opportunity to highlight what we have on the books as well in the future, specifically the Jubilee connection, as we move towards completion of the priority network by the end of 2022. So with those introductory comments, I'd like to thank you again, and I'll now hand you over to Ms. Webb for the presentation.
Thank you. Please confirm that you can hear me okay, Your Worship.
We can, Ms. Webb, and welcome.
Thank you very much. So here at the City of Victoria, we have a mobility strategy. It's called Go Victoria. Victoria has identified a vision for clean, seamless mobility options for everyone. And our All Ages and Abilities Network is a part of our commitment to road safety, climate action, and affordability objectives. The All Ages and Abilities Network extends into every neighborhood, connecting schools, parks, employment areas, and destinations. It was adopted in 2016, and currently we have almost 9 kilometers of infrastructure under construction, with a further 8 kilometers of infrastructure approved for 2021, and 4 new projects under design right now. It is these established policy commitments on mode shift, climate leadership, and asset renewal, along with clear resources from Council to complete the priority network by the end of 2022, that we find ourselves within. You'll see a map there of the entire network, which we're happy to share a larger version as well, which is available on our website. Recent data collected by our partners at Simon Fraser University confirms that cycling, walking, and transit are primary modes of transportation for women, young children, people with lower incomes, and older adults. 1 in 3 residents are interested in cycling, but concerned about safety. And safety and comfort are a key issue impacting mode choice amongst older adults, women, and those who had not cycled in the past year. Cycling truly becomes a viable option for more people more often when there's a safe, connected network. And when the first wave of the pandemic hit municipalities across British Columbia, I think we all realized how important our streetscapes are, not just for moving people, goods, and services, but to be places for people to recreate, exercise, and move around their neighborhoods. So at the City of Victoria, we're trying to achieve something big. We're trying to create investments that are promoting safe, viable, and convenient access to the places where people go. And this includes supporting people as they age in place, or as people have new and young families and are looking for ways to get around. Now, we recognize that what we do in Victoria can help shape positive mobility outcomes back in the region. In 2014, the Regional Transportation Plan identified the challenge of continuing with a business-as-usual approach. And more recently, in 2020, the South Island Transportation Strategy emphasized the critical role that sustainable transportation has in order to manage population growth, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and protect our economic vitality as a region. And the District of Oak Bay plays an important part of this equation. An estimated 12% of commuter trips by Oak Bay residents are by bicycle, some of the highest in the province, and 7% of all trips to, from, and within the Oak Bay municipality are also by bicycle. People are on the move in different ways, and as our municipality, we work closely with the ones around us to ensure that we can address these transportation challenges today and tomorrow. Now, there are 3 general types of all ages and abilities bicycling infrastructure, and we thought it would be important to introduce these concepts for those who may not be familiar, for some of your listeners online. Infrastructure design standards help us determine which treatments are the best and most appropriate for different locations. AAA refers to a standard of cycling infrastructure designed to support more people riding more often. Fully protected bike lanes, like the picture you see on your left, introduce physical barriers and are appropriate on busier corridors with higher densities. Off-street pathways can be used to completely separate users away from motor vehicles where there's space. And shared use neighborhood bikeways target lower motor vehicle speeds and volumes to provide a comfortable environment for riders. The shared use bikeway, the images in the center, are what the Richardson Street design employs, as well as several of other routes across our priority network. This goal is to achieve routes that are 1,000 vehicles per day and about 30 kilometers an hour in terms of speeds. In all applications, the design interventions work as a system, whether it be traffic signals, protected bike lanes, traffic circles, and crossings. One thing that is for sure, with all projects, there are going to be trade-offs. For neighborhoods that use shared use bikeways, like Richardson, achieving our safety goals means recognizing that some traffic will have to use alternative routes within our road network. Local travel patterns will change for residents and commuters, but these impacts are considered in the context of the overall road network, available capacity, and multimodal objectives that we've identified in our official community plan, our network plans, but that are a part of the broader regional pedestrian and cycling master plan. When you're on the road, you might need to drive slower, you might need to take a different route, but it's all about prioritizing moving around our cities differently. So the Richardson Street project is a 2.8 kilometer route that extends from Vancouver Street to Foul Bay. It is that design of a traffic calmed neighborhood AAA bikeway, which we are achieving again a target volumes of about 1,000 vehicles per day. We use traffic diversions and speed management to provide a very a warm and welcoming experience for those people who are riders. Of all of the 2020 corridors, the Richardson Street project did present the greatest challenge in terms of finding a suitable design, one that maintains the best balance for all road users and achieves our network objectives. Numerous treatments were looked at, including protected bike lanes, both one-way and two-way, advisory bike lanes, and ultimately we landed on a shared road design. Each design considers different trade-offs for different road users, as well as impacts for residents versus commuters. As you'll see on the slide today, we're in the detailed design process right now under the Richardson Street project. What's exciting about this project as well is that it introduces several other objectives to support in terms of accessibility and pedestrianization. As a part of our work, we assessed impacts, and early on in the design process, we took careful inventory of the opportunities for achieving these goals while weighing out the impacts and trade-offs on the design. The entire Richardson Street corridor supports currently about 2,800 to 3,400 vehicle trips per day. It also supports just over 600 bicycle riders per day. And in fact, in 2019, over 250 of these riders came directly from Oak Bay, across McNeil and east of the Foul Bay onto Richardson. The design approach considers strategic locations for interventions. The design accommodates transit, provides complementary investments on north and south greenways, and supports pedestrian comfort and accessibility. The Richardson Street design includes several elements that are common within the District of Oak Bay, the District of Saanich, the Township of Esquimalt, and the City of Victoria that already exist. For speed management, we use applications like curb extensions, median islands, and speed bumps. We are also planning to reduce the speed limit on Richardson to 30 kilometers an hour. When it comes to the design elements to manage traffic volumes, the city uses directional diverters, intersection channels, and partial road closures. The intersection at Foul Bay and Richardson/McNeil is a key decision point for motorists, and the planned westbound diverter is intended to reduce the attractiveness as Richardson as a through street, but it still accommodates vehicle access, circulation, and eastbound circulation. The daily two-way east-west movements at this intersection are about 1,100 vehicles per day. The profile shows about 650 vehicles come from Oak Bay and drive westbound from McNeil onto Richardson. Once the westbound diverter is in place, some of these motorists will choose a different route altogether. They might go up to Oak Bay or south down to Beach Drive. Others will continue to take McNeil and then use Foul Bay to get to Fairfield Road or travel north on Oak Bay to Oak Bay or Fort. But just like in other locations along the corridor, around each of our municipalities and across the region, our Victoria residents will also have to make choices and change habits. Ultimately, these interventions work as a system. They recognize that there's a dispersal of motor vehicle trips in order to achieve our goal of providing a safe route for cyclists and pedestrians. As a part of the engagement process, we reached over 2,000 people. Our goal is always a process with meaningful and diverse opportunities to provide feedback, what we are doing and why, and what we're consulting on and what has already been decided. Our outreach process went from October 2019 through to the end of January. The city had online surveys, email feedback, walking tours, in-person open house events with, at these COVID times, imagine fitting in 300 people into a community hall. We used diverse participation means to share the work and invite the community to invite. We used advertisements online, in full-page ads in newspapers, as well as had corridor signs and put posters at key destinations. And it was a successful engagement process, bringing people from all across our neighborhoods and yours into providing feedback on this important part of our network. So the Richardson Street project is a part of our community and it's a part of our network, but it's also one project as we continue to move forward on completing this priority network by the end of 2022. The Jubilee Connection is the latest work that we're doing in coordination with your staff, again, working to look at what are options for the best route to be able to provide the most easterly connection as a part of our network. So our consultation and alignment design was started in September, and we've spent the last couple of months working to engage the community, again, using new techniques and tactics and making sure that word got spread far and wide. We're currently undertaking review and technical analysis and working directly with your city staff to help promote this opportunity and also to review opportunities for intersection improvements and connections between our capital planning in 2022 and beyond. So Victoria is continuing to move forward with its commitments on mobility, including the priority AAA bicycle network. We're trying to continue to adapt our processes to plan, design, engage, and monitor projects, and our investments do provide opportunities to achieve both local and regional goals on mobility, climate action, and affordability. We can support inter-community active transportation, and we're making continued investments to support our building our vitality amongst our communities. So thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Webb, and thank you for taking the time today. And also, I think we can all universally appreciate the effort and difficulty of making integrated transportation systems in a complicated multi-municipal environment. But with that, I'll go around the table here. Are there questions or comments? I'll just take them from council at this time. Go ahead, Councillor Ney.
Thank you very much for the presentation. There's lots of very useful information. I found it very informative, and yeah, kudos to City of Victoria for taking such a bold leadership direction on active transportation, creating mode shift. I really appreciate that. Some of the information I'm curious about, it's clear that you've done a fair bit of sort of engagement and analysis of the traffic patterns. Can you help us understand, because this is a question that comes from constituents in our community, as the traffic is dispersed to the north and south at the intersection at Foul Bay, what kind of load would we anticipate on Oak Bay and then Fairfield as well? And I'm wondering how specific you're able to be, what you would anticipate, particularly, I mean, people have been concerned about, you know, traffic being dispersed by a school and then on Oak Bay Avenue, which already can be very congested at different times. And I'm wondering if you could speak to those two transport routes.
Thank you, Councillor Ney. Ms. Webb?
Yes, thank you, through your worship. It's a very important question. And first, before we talk about kind of the technical side or the modeling, we have to remember that people make decisions if they are driving on the route that they take. And we all get into habits. I know I have my favorite way to drive to the grocery store, or perhaps I take a certain route at a time of the day when I'm traveling. And absolutely, when we make changes on our road networks in any form, we do know that there's a period of time where people adjust and go, oh yeah, I might not be able to go that way again, or hey, I'm going to take a different route. So people do make decisions of the routes that they travel at the front door. When we look at the number of vehicles that are currently traveling from McNeil Street and going straight through into the City of Victoria, about 650 vehicles per day, as I mentioned. Interestingly enough, those vehicles, the peak travel time for those vehicles is actually midday. So while there is beginning of the day and end of day traffic, we do find that the peak period is actually the middle of the day when our road networks have most highest available capacity. Currently, about 2/3 we would anticipate going up towards Oak Bay, and about a third going down towards Fairfield. That's just based on current approaches and conditions. So that's based on the existing ratios applied to that same approach. But of course, one of the big components with any of these projects is to be able to monitor and collect data. We do data collection both before, during, and after projects with a goal to understand where people are going and how they're getting there. So I would say that while we can make estimations based on traffic modeling of people's current behavior patterns and the routes they use, we do know that some people will take completely different routes altogether. Maybe they will change the mode of their trip. They will combine routes. But at this point, we feel comfortable that the volumes that we're talking about at this particular location really are a small impact on the overall road network, where we have lots of available capacity between our municipalities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nay. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Green?
Through you, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation, which does provide some really good information, lots of detail. Here are the concerns that are coming from my community, being Oak Bay, regarding the diversion of traffic onto Fairfield and Oak Bay Avenue with the proposed closure at Foul Bay Road. On Fairfield Road, there are 2 schools, a park, and a care home between Cook and Foul Bay Road. So we have 2 school zones, a park zone, and the care home, of course. And do you have any concerns about the increase in motor vehicle traffic along Fairfield Road now? If traffic coming out of Oak Bay or from other areas cannot travel east and west on Richardson. And the other concern I've heard from some community members here is that Oak Bay Avenue is choked at a number of points between Foul Bay and where the Oak Bay Junction is, Fort Street. Adding additional traffic to Oak Bay Avenue is a concern for the local community and for neighborhoods in between. One of the biggest concerns are the neighborhoods that border Fairfield, between Fairfield and Oak Bay, which is often called the Oak Bay border area. So that's between Foul Bay and Richmond. That whole area, they're very concerned about increased traffic because people, to avoid congestion, may cut through neighborhoods along Quamachin and a number of other streets. So have you had any feedback or concerns about the impacts on neighborhoods? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Ms. Webb?
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Green. First, I'll just remind ourselves of why did we choose Richardson in the first place, and what's that relationship back to Fairfield? Back in 2015 and 2016, when the city developed its All Ages and Abilities Network, a part of that very much exercise looked at Fairfield Road as a candidate, and specifically actually looked at the merits and drawbacks of the different approaches. At that time, the city chose to pursue the Richardson Street corridor very intentionally for a couple of reasons. First, on the Richardson Street corridor, there is available space and a direct connection to McNeil, where both were identified in our official community plans, as well as the regional pedestrian and cycling master plan as that key east-west connector. So going back as far as 2011, Richardson was identified as that corridor that we wanted to make an investments in. And Fairfield Road was designated as an intermunicipal road network and also a part of our frequent transit network. Now, investing on Richardson doesn't mean that the city's not going to be continuing to invest on streets like Fairfield Road or indeed Oak Bay Avenue. And in fact, part of the work that we're doing right now with the Jubilee is looking at, is Oak Bay Avenue a suitable solution for other investments at this time? Or is it other streets like Fort Street, perhaps the better investment in this short term? So while we look at taking the approach on Richardson, we won't ever forget that the kinds of works that we're doing already on Fairfield Road to support those school zones. Just recently, as a part of our traffic calming program, we updated and added new crosswalks around those schools. We've also increased visibility around all of our school zones in that area. And we're continuing to work with BC Transit on making transit stop upgrades on Fairfield Road. So really, movement of vehicles is going to continue to happen on those other streets like Fairfield and Oak Bay, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to put that road safety investment through many of our other capital programs that we have each year. And now to answer your question about kind of those localized impacts, if we put a plug at some spot, what will happen? Where will those cars go? And one of the things with the Richardson Street design is that it really includes 5 strategic intervention locations. And these are really designed around 3 clusters or catchments. Councillor Green, you referred to kind of one cluster area kind of in the St. Charles to Fowl Bay zone. In fact, we've been very intentional of looking at directional diverters and traffic calming interventions that will actually help to avoid that idea of rat running through other parts of the neighborhood, but still facilitating local access. We're not closing down the roads. We're still going to have thousands of people driving to, from, and around these neighborhoods. It's just about really looking strategically at where those streets will be and where those interventions can be located. And then again, following up with data collection, understanding right now what the current traffic profile is, and then doing the same after the fact. We do know that we have lots of capacity on our roads, and many people are excited about the idea and improvements that can come with some of these adjacent changes on and off the corridor.
Councillor Green?
Thank you very much. And just for the benefit of the public in Oak Bay, would you define an intervention for us? Thank you very much.
Ms. Webb?
Well, Councillor Green, I would say that I'm using the word intervention to say something like a speed hump is a way to make an intervention on speed. A diverter is an intervention as a way to reduce traffic vehicle volumes. A pedestrian crossing is an intervention to provide improved comfort and safety for pedestrians. And similarly, we may find an intervention on our corridor also in the form of a new plaza space or trees. So I'm using it a little bit more generically, but when we talk about traffic calming, we use different tools and strategies, much of which are common right across the capital region to help support this kind of traffic calmed approach for Richardson.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Are there other Councillor Braithwaite, Councillor Appleton? Did I see your hand?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Ms. Webb, and thank you to the City of Victoria for really promoting the Ages and Abilities Cycling Network. I will reiterate the 2 previous speakers and their questions and concerns, and I have some questions of my own. I understand that you said that there's about 650 vehicles that are coming from Oak Bay and using this corridor. But I also heard you, I think, in your presentation talk about 2,800 to 3,400 cars. I'm a little bit confused. What is the actual number of vehicles that use this particular road?
Ms. Webb?
Thank you for the clarification. So when I referred to the 2,800 to 3,400 vehicles per day, I was referring to the entire extent of Richardson that runs between Vancouver Street and Fowl Bay. When I referred to the more 650 vehicles, that was specifically at the intersection of McNeil, Richardson, and Fowl Bay.
Thank you.
So there are a series of diversions along the entire corridor that are going to help achieve our target of 1,000 vehicles per day, as well as 30 kilometers an hour.
Thank you. And so then, if I can continue on this line of questioning, so then those 1,000 vehicles will be now using that instead of the 2,800 to 3,400. So those other, I guess, 2,500 cars, if we go to the maximum, they're the ones that will be pushed onto the other 2 roads, correct?
Ms. Webb?
We are looking Yeah, we are looking to reduce traffic vehicle volumes from about 2,500, 2,800 vehicles a day down to 1,000 vehicles a day. And we are going to be using techniques both from the east and the west. So the first intervention starts over at Cook Street to answer your question, and really is a very kind of strategic along the way. So what we did as a part of our consultation is we looked at where traffic volumes are going now, what are our available routes to get in and out of this area. Fairfield Road, obviously one of them, and Dallas Road being on the south. We also have Fort Street and Johnson Street. And so we looked at the kind of entire road network, as well as considered localized access to those streets that are our neighborhood so that we could continue to provide access in and through as we travel north and south.
Thank you. And I wonder if perhaps, and this might be a question to our staff, if our staff are in agreement with that 650 cars a day at that particular point.
I'm not sure Mr. Haran is on the call. Is he? Okay. Mr. Haran, do you have any additions or insights into the number of vehicles at that intersection?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. We have not done independent traffic volume studies but we have, so we have not done the studies ourselves. We don't have separate numbers to report.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps that might be something we might look to between now and when this project goes ahead. And then I know, I just have a couple of more things. I know in your presentation, Ms. Webb, you did say that there was a challenge to find a design for this road. And I'm wondering why that was and why then you stuck to this road if it was such a challenge to find a design.
Perhaps I'll just clarify. Going to the kind of first question, as we think about road classifications and the roads that we have around our network, we thought very carefully about which interventions worked to support our goals and objectives on Richardson. When I meant about the design challenges is looking at what would be the most suitable all ages and abilities design for Richardson Street. One of the exercises we go through is looking at are protected bike lanes suitable in this area? What are the trade-offs with that? Are protected bike lanes on either side of the road? We looked at the concept of advisory bike lanes. Again, a slightly different approach in terms of achieving that all ages and abilities status. And one of the key things that we found that came together as a part of that design investigation was looking at how they work in concert with our other objectives. For example, a neighborhood bikeway approach helps to reduce speeds and volumes of cars, but it helps to provide a quieter atmosphere for those people living on the road. It gives us opportunities to make investments in crosswalk upgrades and some of the placemaking features along this corridor. As we looked at the trade-offs between protected bike lanes, we had to think about safety. In a lower density neighborhood like Richardson and the land use pattern and zoning along that corridor, you have driveways from single family dwellings. So if you looked at a protected bike lane design, all of a sudden you wouldn't have very much protection left on the corridor. We also have to think about other trade-offs like on-street parking, and we really found that the shared use design actually worked really well to be able to accommodate transit service, to be able to facilitate emergency access, and to still provide people with access to the Richardson corridor, just not as a direct cut-through street.
Thank you for that explanation. And my last question is, you talked about currently there's about 600 bike trips on this road. So my question is, how will you measure success? Will it be 601 bike trips a day? Will it be 1,000 bike trips a day? And so what will make it successful and worth the investment that is being made?
Ms. Webb?
Thank you for your question. I think that success comes in a few different ways. One, I would like to point out that, mode share is something that we measure as a region every 4 and 5 years. And if we can look to the success already that we've seen as we've implemented our current corridors in our downtown core, we've seen tremendous growth. Wharf Street, Fort Street, Pandora Avenue, and now Vancouver Street that's under construction, we've seen significant increases in in ridership. One of the elements that we do is that we install data collection on each of these corridors to look at and measure quantitatively what does our ridership look like. It's also important to think about success in terms of who is riding on these corridors. So as we think about the types of riders, the new riders, as you know, partly it's to understanding and identify what are some of the short-term wins or success measures, as well as longer term. You know, this is really about building a connected network, and one street is not a part of that. It's about where you create those destinations and where you create the place, the links to where people are going. So there is a very quantitative approach to success, but there's also a qualitative of who is riding, where are they riding, what's the percentage of our household income that is being spent on transportation, and even some of the other elements like our added tree forest canopy. You know, these projects are a great opportunity for us to continue to add new street trees to our road network. And so again, that's going to be another component of measuring success. Ultimately, I like to think of, you know, this is a part of our mobility solutions. We're not just working on an all ages and abilities cycling network. We're working on transit shelter upgrades, traffic signal optimization, crosswalks and sidewalks. They all go together. And this is part of that mobility puzzle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship, and just extending my sincere thanks to City of Victoria staff for providing this presentation. As somebody who rides down Richardson probably a good 3 to 4 times a week, almost every week, it's exciting to see that being put in place, and I think it definitely will increase ridership along that corridor. We've referred to the data a few times, so I guess I have a couple of questions. The first question I would have is, are the data that you're referencing publicly available? Have they been shared? I assume they've been shared with our staff, but are they accessible for folks to review?
Ms. Webb?
Our traffic count program is right across our municipality. We do also direct work with the CRD. So absolutely, I mean, we look at traffic volumes and speeds, work very collaboratively, both on the localized and the regional data collection efforts. So no reason why we aren't able to share that information. I also point out that traffic data collection is also continuing to be modified with new technologies out there. So previously we would have used more traditional tools like tube counters, as well. Nowadays, you can bring out cameras to look at, and of course, we still use the good old-fashioned people. So lots of different ways to collect information and data. And perhaps one important piece to think about too is the context of what we're talking about in terms of road networks with, you know, arterial and collector streets that support up to 15,000 vehicles a day. So, you know, our road network includes a lot of complex streets and roads, and we're happy to share information about how they all fit together, because it's not just about looking at one particular corridor, it's about how that corridor functions as a part of a comprehensive network and a network of different classifications of roads.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And further to that, we were talking about the number of riders moving between Oak Bay and Victoria along that Richardson corridor. Is that information broken down? Is that just numbers of individuals, or is it broken down demographically at all? Like, can we say, are there certain, you know, are we talking about adults? Are we talking about kids? Are we talking about groups of people? Is that data actually available?
Thank you for the question. At this point, we do just count bodies. However, as a part of the regional cycling count program, which happens systematically at different times of the year, where the Capital Regional District will select locations right across the capital region, I do know that they try to obtain gender information as well. So at this time, it is just whole counts. We can look at maybe what our proportion is of current riders and what that profile looks like. One of the things that I might share with Council, if I could, is that the City of Victoria is involved in several longitudinal academic research projects, and one of them involves the All Ages and Abilities Cycling Network, looking to see not only who is riding, why they're riding, but the benefits that come to them either through health or economic means. That program is actually, we're in year 3 right now, and we get regular updates, and that's how we know about the profile of people. And we do statistically relevant third-party data collection and sampling of people's perceptions, their habits, their attitudes. So we're also a part of that broader academic research that's happening in cities right across North America to understand how cycling is a part of the health solution. As mentioned, this particular Interact study is funded directly through the Canadian Institute for Health Researches and is through Simon Fraser University. So very exciting information that's coming out as we look at who is riding in our community, not just if they are.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate that, because what I am particularly interested in, I think folks who spend time moving back and forth along the Richardson corridor will be aware that there are folks families, children moving back and forth from the Victoria side to Oak Bay to attend Monterey Middle School, Margaret Jenkins Elementary, Central Middle School is a corridor for transportation of kids and of families moving back and forth through that corridor. And I suspect that improved cycling infrastructure would increase the mode share of children who attend those schools actually being able to safely cycle to work, or cycle to school, excuse me.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Is there anybody else who wishes to have with any questions or comments? Councillor Zelka, you're on the phone. Is there anything you wish to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
All right, well, through you, thank you very much to the representatives of the City of Victoria for the presentation. Very much appreciate being able to share with you our thoughts. First question I have for you relating to the letter that was sent from Council through to Victoria Council. One of the requests was to see if Victoria Council was amenable to any sort of reconsideration or amenable to any input from Oak Bay with respect to the shared border, in particular at Foul Bay at Richardson. I'd like to first ask that question. How open is Victoria to change?
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. I think we got the answer at the beginning of this, where they're here to present, but the decision has been made at the council table. But Ms. Webb, do you have anything to add to that?
If I may take this one, Your Worship. Yes, that is the case. This very question was discussed by our council, and at the end of that discussion, the motion was for staff was to direct staff to come for information before we go and carry out the tendering next year.
Thank you, Mr. Bellafontaine. Councillor Zelka?
So what I'm hearing is that at this moment, at least, Victoria is not open to change. So let me at least share with you a few of my concerns to hopefully see if whether Victoria will possibly reconsider at least some input. First of all, I appreciate that you apparently had a very successful engagement. Unfortunately, I did not hear anything about this engagement, and I was also quite concerned when I heard once the decision was made through our staff that there was quite a fair amount of surprise around our table. So I just wanted to sort of share that feedback to you, that while it may be successful from your perspective, on the other side, or the west side of Foul Bay Road, it was not successful as far as I'm concerned. So I wanted to ask you, with respect to the closure of with the closure of Richardson at Foul Bay, and from Oak Bay's perspective, it is a closure with respect to the road furniture, for lack, I don't know what to call it. On the lovely drawing, I'm referring to a drawing that I got from your website about the details of what is at each intersection. It talks about what features at Foul Bay and Richardson is something that restricts westbound traffic and explores landscaping opportunities. I particularly find that rather, I'm sorry to say, but I find it personally offensive, just the fact that there was closure without input from Oak Bay Council. I wanted to ask, there is a bus route, a two-way bus route that goes through there. Let me start by asking that question. What is, since you've completely blocked off one lane, what is the recommendations, or what will be happening to route number 1 from your perspective?
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. So I guess to Ms. Webb, what is the plans for transit along that corridor at that intersection?
Excuse me. Yeah, so transit is actually going to continue to run on Richardson Street. The design interventions will enable transit access at the intersection of Foul Bay and Richardson McNeil. The bus will exit out from Richardson Street and on to McNeil, do the regular route. As it comes back onto from Oak Bay and into Victoria, it will make just a kind of a small operational detour, which will go left on Foul Bay Road and right on Gonzales, back onto Richardson Street. This already utilizes existing transit stops, and BC Transit is pleased with the outcome. And again, this is about continuing to support a design that specifically supports the continuation of the number 1 route.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Go ahead, Councillor
Sorry,
Zelka.
did I hear you say that it'll turn north on Foul Bay, coming from McNeil, heading downtown? It'll go north up to Qualmerson?
No, sorry, incorrect. South, and it will go right on Gonzales, and then left back onto Richardson.
Oh,
so as a part of the process, we do a design review with transit. We also do ride-alongs to test out. So yes, so the majority of the route will be on Richardson, but when it is traveling westbound, coming from Oak Bay at McNeil, it will take a left on Foul Bay Road and right on Gonzales to get back to Richardson Street.
Thank you. So it looks like there'll be at least 2 transit stops that will have to be moved from the Richardson area, I guess, near the Glenn Lyon Norfolk School, and then to the southern part of Pemberton Park, is what you're imagining. I imagine? Is that true?
Yes, we would be repurposing that curb space. We've been working very closely with the Glenn Lyon Norfolk School in and around that area, and in fact, a part of our community-supported traffic calming initiative and placemaking program is very much going to be using that. So the folks on Madison and that area are quite excited about the opportunities there for some placemaking.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate hearing what's happening with Route 1, that it will continue along Gonzales. The next question I have for you has to do with, in particular, with safety. Possibly Victoria is working on this as well with respect to evacuation route planning. Certainly, Oak Bay is having to relook at this. Everyone, with respect to climate change and a number of at the provincial level, there are 57 official hazards. And it seems with respect to updating emergency programs, we're starting to look at updating our evacuation route planning. When this came along, it seems to me that this is going to impact our evacuation route planning, since this is one of 2 major exits from the southern part of Oak Bay. Had the City of Victoria considered this in their decision to close Richardson at Foul Bay?
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. I'm not sure if this is appropriate for Ms. Webb or Mr. Bellafontaine, but whoever is most comfortable answering that question, please do.
Thank you very much for the question. So first, a very important thing as we think about emergency access, what we do in the face of a disaster. And of course, Victoria is an active participant in the Regional Emergency Management Network, and very much have been an active participant as we consider evacuation routes, protocols, and planning. First of all, I would always say that during an emergency, operations will always take precedent. And in this case, our road network is available and open for use. We're talking about a couple of strategically located directional diverters to support reduced vehicle volumes and speeds of everyday travel. But police and fire and ambulance are a part of our regular review process, and very much so, emergency response and management on our roads at any time is always an option and will continue to be so in the future.
Councillor Zelka?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So then a question, looking at the strategic, the desires of what you're trying to achieve. You have a traffic flow diverter at Madison, which prevents westbound traffic. It's eastbound only at Madison and Richardson, which is 4 to 5 blocks away from Oak Bay. Could you not achieve the same objectives, especially since you've got speed bumps, at least 3 speed bumps between that traffic diverter and the border with Oak Bay, by leaving the traffic diverter at Madison but removing the road closure at Foul Bay?
Maybe getting to a level of detail in the design I don't want to necessarily get too far down, but I'll let Ms. Webb answer the question.
At the strategic level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, I'll refer to the response that I had provided Councillor Green in the sense that these interventions do work as a system. The challenge is that if we only included one intervention, let's say at Madison, we would simply end up with diverting through traffic onto other local roads. So we very much worked very closely to look at the location and placement of these of diverters, and the Madison and Foul Bay locations work together in a team as a part of this design.
Councillor Selka?
So the last thing I'll share is, other than my displeasure, is that I do notice the letter that came in from the previous MLA, Dr. Andrew Weaver, to Victoria Council and conveniently CC'd to Oak Bay Council, suggesting that there appears to be a lack of coordination and cooperation between the two councils. And the previous MLA did recommend that there be no funding, no provincial funding for this Richardson corridor until such time as consultation is completed. In my humble opinion, this consultation is not completed. And I would hope that City of Victoria would at least hear some of the serious concerns that some of us on council have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Are there any other comments from people at this table? I don't see any. I'll just I have a couple of questions and comments here, and thank you again just to all of you from City of Victoria staff who have been sent here to take our questions and answer and provide the overview. I guess I will share that there was certainly a bit of a visceral response to the finalized design. As someone who, like Councillor Appleton, rides down that corridor, my son has ridden that by himself since he was 10 years old to visit his best friend almost a few number of times a week. I think a lot of us see that as recognizing it is not an AAA biking infrastructure. It's also a very friendly bike infrastructure for most people, even of quite young ages, as it's quite wide and, as you point out, doesn't have very large quantities of traffic. I think some of the some of the questions that people have for that is there is definitely going to be an impact of cars going over onto Fairfield and onto other side streets, and certainly putting more pressure on what are already very crowded points of this, particularly in front of the two elementary schools that exist on Fairfield that are often a bit of a gong show during morning rush hour in particular. And I guess if I might just ask this sort of question, you touched on it a bit about the problems of having separated bike lanes on there with driveways. But was that the primary motivator for not doing separated bike lanes and still allowing some car traffic through to that corridor?
So the City of Victoria uses design guidance from, the Transportation Association of Canada, the North American City Transportation Officials, or NACTO, but we also follow guidance from the Province of BC's Active Transportation Infrastructure Design Guidelines. And very much so, there are standards and approaches to the types of infrastructure solutions that you would provide. A couple of key things to point out on the protected bike lanes. Indeed, because there are so many driveways along the entire corridor. Again, this is not like in a downtown environment where you have larger blocks and fewer breaks. This is in some spots very, very continuous elements of braking, and you really wouldn't get that kind of level of protection that you'd be looking for on the corridors. As well as on the treatment side, as you look at intersections, protected bike lanes at unsignalized intersections can also be yet another new thing challenging for people to navigate. What we do know is that a traffic calmed approach helps to support several objectives. One, we can keep transit flowing and moving on this corridor. We can continue to do placemaking and accessibility upgrades. We can add on-street parking. We can help to create new spaces for trees and landscaping. So it was about the entire package and process as you look at what is a suitable design intervention for a street like Richardson Street. As we look at the network, I can advise that the Richardson corridor since 2016 and since our early discussions across our community with Oak Bay staff, has been always as a shared road kind of concept, and that really came to fruition as we went through that design process last year.
Thank you. You touched on that point. I believe your OCP listed as a secondary collector now. Will it be officially changed then to a local road with these changes?
Yes, thank you for the question, Your Worship. As a part of our official community plan updates and as a part of our streets and traffic bylaw, we do take associated steps to reclassify roads as needed as a part of the work that we're doing with all of our projects. This is ultimately really about kind of managing our network, but we do make the steps to adjust our bylaws accordingly with both speed changes as well as volume changes.
Okay, thank you. And I note that in the report and the presentation to Victoria Council, there was a note, I think, made that unlike other corridors that were being presented last time, like Haltane and Vancouver, there were no parallel arterial or collector roads available in the same way as there is here. So this leaves us with just Fairfield as a single driving corridor. Is that considered to be any problems? And I note that with the recent sewage work, chunks of Fairfield were shut down for quite extensive periods of time, and there aren't a lot of other options for people to get in and around without that open. How much concern is there with having a single road out for all of South Oak Bay and South Fairfield?
Well, I would correct that there isn't a single road. There are, in fact, several roads. Fairfield is one of them, but Oak Bay Avenue is the other. Fort Street, we do have several options for people to get around. We are talking about low volumes of diverted traffic. When you think about the scale and magnitude of what we can handle on our networks, whether they be secondary collectors, arterials, the city can move lots of vehicles over time. What I would also remind ourselves is, what is our goal? Our goal is to be able to give people safe and convenient and affordable options. And being able to prioritize and support transit, walking, and cycling are things that the city and the District of Oak Bay have in common. Fairfield carries over 10,000 vehicles a day and comfortably can move that kind of scale and magnitude of cars. Adding a few hundred vehicles at different times, it may be an inconvenience for some, but overall, as a part of our network and as a part of the way that people move around the city, we are feeling comfortable with the design decisions around Richardson Street.
Okay, thank you. I guess my last point as well is you rightly point out that Oak Bay has some of the highest cycling ridership in the region. A lot of that is due to the fact that we essentially have the design you're proposing on Richardson on most of our roads, in that they're quiet side streets without the controls of the bike lanes, but are reasonably easy to ride down. That is contingent upon the volume of traffic, and I guess part of the concerns, and not your problem, I guess, at the end of the day, with closing off the road at Richardson to cars, is that it forces those cars onto the side streets, and we have to do some analysis, obviously, on our part to make changes to ensure that we control the volume of cars in those side streets so that they remain the safe, kind of bike-friendly, low-volume side streets that we need to make those work. And certainly, I think we can all perceive the possibility here that some of these very small side streets that are close, because all of the roads close to the to Foul Bay Road on the Oak Bay side are very small, narrow streets, often country lanes. They have very limited capacity for additional traffic, so we're going to have to do a fair bit of work on our side to accommodate and to adapt as we see the traffic changes. I think that's one of the bigger concerns that we've had in this process, is just what is that downstream and how do we ramp up our designs and accommodation in a way that allows us to access grants and so forth. So I think that's probably the other piece of that. I do I think I'll just finish my comments there. Council, I don't want to go around too much more just in respect of time. Councillor Green, you had your hand up. Was there something else you wanted to add before we go?
Yeah, just two comments, and again, I appreciate the presentation tonight, but there is one concern that has been mentioned to me a lot about increasing traffic flow on Fairfield Road, which is why I raised it, and that is the increased air pollution around schools and parks. And that is an issue for parents and for families. So I think that's something we have to talk about as well. The other one is partnership, and that's a goal in your report, and I really appreciate it. But this decision came to us as a decision already made, and that puts us at a disadvantage as a community in terms of our future planning and thinking about how partnerships work well. And I think they work well when the impacted parties are able to collaborate at an earlier stage in the plan or in the design. So that would be my only concern, is that OPE has not had a strong voice in the ultimate planning for this bike lane and this infrastructure. And I would encourage Victoria in the future with other decisions that might impact their neighboring community to really think about how they want to be in terms of partners. That's my only comment. Thank you.
I think that's such a good way to leave it, since it was the last part of the presentation, was the next, which is the consideration of Oak Bay Avenue, Layton, and 4th Street for next phases. Is there some mechanism besides the general public input process by which we can provide feedback as a body with advice from our engineering department onto that? I certainly, again, first blush of that, Layton is a road that ends at nowhere onto a street that is terrible for cycling, and I think we'd probably all agree that our plans here are to allow for better cycling infrastructure, some that exists on Cadbury Bay Road and some that doesn't yet exist but is expected to on Oak Bay Avenue. So how do we provide that level of feedback more officially early enough in the process that there's a sense that there's some participation? Ms. Webb?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is the reason why we got in touch with your staff in the summertime and gave them a sneak preview before we launched the process in September. Absolutely, we're happy to continue to working with your staff. We're promoting it through to your residents and look forward to your formal participation in a way that works best for you. I can, again, invite you to learn more about the Jubilee Connection from our engagement portal, which is engage.victoria.ca. That's where you can find information and videos, handouts, and information as we are continuing the technical analysis and agency discussions this month and into the new year. So look forward to hearing from you in a way that works well based on the coordination with your staff.
Okay, thank you. Just for my clarification.
Excuse me, Your Worship, can I just chip in a little bit here, just to sort of narrow down the timelines on that?
Thank you, Mr. Belafontaine.
Staff are anticipating a Q1 report back to our council on the Jubilee alignment. So I want to offer that up, so that will help between your staff group and council determine the best way to get feedback to us. So certainly after this meeting, we'll talk to your staff about the optimum way to feed into that process.
I would appreciate that, Mr. Belafontaine. I think that's important. Even if it's just a summary report that's going to your council to come here, and we can provide our comments and feedback prior to that consideration, that I think would be helpful. I think it's should be obvious, I hope, that there are downstream impacts of any of these changes, and I know there's a technical aspect of it, but just like in the City of Victoria, there's also a political and community aspect to the changes as well. And there are certainly aspects here of aspirational goals that we have as a council in terms of active transportation that we would hope would align with what the City of Victoria is doing. So we're at that process right now to develop some of that, and so I think providing that opportunity for us to participate would be very valuable. Thank you. Ms. Varela?
Yep. Thank you, Your Worship.
Sorry, Ms. Varela, did you have something to add?
Just a note that Mr. Haran is on the line if you'd like to offer comment.
If Mr. Haran would like to offer comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to echo what was just said by Mr. Bellefontaine and Ms. Webb, just to add, I think when it comes to the next process that's happening, and I may just be repeating a little bit of what was said, but just to make sure that we're on the same page, the engagement that's currently happening in the City of Victoria is for residents in general. So anybody can go to City of Victoria's engagement a portal to make their feelings known and so on. And there is a lot of staff-to-staff discussions that are happening and will be happening. What we'll do, I think what we need to make clear is that there's going to be a certain point in time where City of Victoria's plans are generally finalized and formalized. And at that point, there needs to be enough time between when that is and when final decisions are made by City of Victoria's Council that neighboring municipalities like Oak Bay's Council can look at what the plans actually are and not what the options are going to be, and then actually can weigh in as a community, as a governing body for a neighboring community. So as long as we can work together with our neighbors to have enough time between when finalized proposals are being made and when council decisions are being made, then I think that everything will work out to everybody's satisfaction, at least in terms of an ability to weigh in on what's being considered by neighboring councils. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Horan. I think we would all agree with that sentiment, and if that's possible, that would be great. And I think that the problem we have with just being individuals providing feedback on the portal is we have an obligation to represent our community at the regional table, and I think our conjoined voice here and the differing of opinions at this table reflect that community and can share to that response as well. I note that in the online feedback on Richardson, of the 738 responses, about 58% were not in favor of the design that was proposed. So I don't know that that generalized feedback process is always the most powerful. I think the more nuanced approach that we can take in terms of giving suggestions on improvements and being part of the solution is the preferred one. So thank you for that. Is there anything else I would like that our guests would like to say before we bid them adieu? I appreciate we've kept you here longer than I intended, and this is a lot of hours late in the evening for you, and definitely very appreciative of the time that you spent here.
No, I would just I would close by saying thank you for the opportunity. We're always happy to continue to dialogue and work together. And before I pass it back over to Mr. Bellefontaine, just to emphasize the opportunity that there is for us to continue to achieve these goals that we do have in common as we move forward and make strategic investments in road safety and multimodal transportation right across the capital region.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Your
Webb.
Worship, nothing more for me to add, just to say thank you very much for making the time for us tonight. It was much appreciated.
All right, thank you very much. There is nothing for us to do on this particular item. We just, but very much appreciate the city's willingness to be here and participate in this question. So thank you for that. Moving on to item number 5.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good evening. We'll move on to item number 5. Which is the donation of bike repair stations, a considerably simpler topic of consideration. I believe we have Mr. Herman, or is it Mr.
It's Mr. Hidlay.
Mr. Hidlay.
Oh, Mr. Hidlay. Oh, welcome, Mr. Hidlay.
Thank you, Your Worship.
We have the report in front of us for information. Is there anything you wish to add?
Not really. I just want to stress that the bike repair stations in and themselves are essentially maintenance free. What will wear out on them is the rubber holders, and the rubber holders are the cushions on the top of the bars that hold the bikes in place to be worked on. You may get some powder coating. The bike repair stands themselves are powder coated, some chips from just wear and tear. And then other than that, any vandalism, but essentially I would refer to them as being somewhat bulletproof as they have no moving parts. And I would anticipate that you should be able to see these out in all types of weather for easily 15 or 20 years. We do anticipate maybe the tools being stolen as they were at the rec center bike repair stand. but that's just a piece of unfortunateness.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Headley. I see one hand up already. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. A couple of things. Number one, we're very fortunate that that we have organizations that are willing to donate so much stuff to Oak Bay. So we're really fortunate in that respect. So thank you very much to the Community Association of Oak Bay for that. My question is, Mr. Heidley, through you, Mayor, what is the cost of the installation of these bike repair stations, please?
Mr. Headley.
Through the mayor, thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. They could be installed in a day, all 6 or all 4.
I'm sorry. So what is
where we may have some playing around to do is at the Monterey Center, and I will mention I did talk to Leslie Kobus, the coordinator there, just about the requirement and need for additional bike parking. So the existing bike rack that's currently under cover there, we would probably, we would reconfigure how that works. So we would add a bike repair station, and by taking out the rear glass and maybe moving the shelter forward a little bit, would double the bike parking at that location. So that would be the largest element of labor. The other locations, they essentially bolt to pavement or cement.
So is there a dollar value that would be that would go along with that installation, if you can estimate?
Mr. Headley?
$800.
I'm sorry, did you say $800?
Yes.
Per installation?
No, that would be for all of the installations, and that would be including just reconfiguring the Monterey Center bike parking shelter.
Thank you. And if I might just continue along that line. The reason I ask, Mr. Heidley, is that I know that for some of our other donations, for example, benches and artwork, etc., there is a requirement of additional funds to help with the installation and maintenance of the items. And I'm wondering if that's been supplied here, and I'll probably ask the same question for the next item on the agenda as well. And so is this being supplied here, and if not, why, or does it not fall under the criteria for that?
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Mr. Headley?
It has not. Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. It has not been provided here. We looked at them as being relatively maintenance-free and a simple piece of infrastructure to maintain.
Thank you. And so I'll ask this question on the next item then again. Thank you. So you're prepared.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Is there any other questions or comments from? I guess take questions at this point. Do we have a motion on the table? No other questions, so...
I'll make the recommendation that the donation of 4 bike repair stations from the Community Association of Oak Bay be installed at the Monterey Center, Henderson Center, Windsor Park, and Willows Park be approved.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will take this opportunity to point out, and it's not specifically referenced in the report, but I will refer back to Oak Bay's 2011 Active Transportation Strategy, which specifically references this type of infrastructure as part of active transportation infrastructure. When we speak about active transportation infrastructure, the conversation often turns to high dollar, high value, high impact infrastructure on roads that are difficult for people sometimes to wrap their heads around. This is also infrastructure. So this is a key piece to encouraging the modal shift, which has been referred to a couple of times tonight. So I would definitely fully in support of this, and also in support of, further to Councillor Braithwaite's comments, this is infrastructure for transportation in our community. So there are maintenance requirements for things which are optional. This is infrastructure for mobility in this community. So I am fully in support of the district absorbing the cost of maintenance of this type of infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Speaking in favor of the motion. Any other discussion? I'm not seeing any. We have a motion on the table, so I will call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Zelka?
In favor.
That passes. Thank you very much. Item number 6, and I just Councillor Braithwaite already said it, but I will say it again. Thank you very much to the Community Association of Oak Bay, who I understand saw an opportunity. I found these at a very good price, picked them up on behalf of the community, and are donating them. So I really want to just express our appreciation for that thoughtfulness and for their generosity in donating it to the community. Item next on the agenda is number Windsor Park Shelter, also bike related. Mr. Hidley.
Thank you, Your Worship. This proposal came forward just through discussions with various members of the community and various things that have been expressed to the Parks Department in regards to the need for covered bike parking and covered stroller shelter down at the Windsor Park, especially for people that use the pavilion or may cycle there to play sports. So back in October, Joan Peggs brought forward, at that time it was on behalf of the Rotary Club of Oak Bay, and inquired about the possibility of raising funds. Since that time, the Rotary Club has identified other projects. So Joan has partnered with the Community Association of Oak Bay to raise the $25,000 construction material cost to construct a covered, well-lit shelter at Windsor Pavilion. We anticipate the life of the shelter itself to be at least 20 years minimum, probably longer. It would require some annual maintenance, or I would refer to life cycle replacement costs. The actual maintenance in and themselves is very light, other than repairing any vandalism that may occur or any painting, etc., that would be required. I'll give the Henderson shelter as an example. That was constructed about 6 years ago now, and it has been maintenance free, and that is one that does have a solar light. I think this one would be well received by the community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hidley. Councillor Green?
Yes. Through you to Mr. Hidley. Thank you very much, Mr. Hidley. And what would the materials be used to build the shelters?
The materials would be very similar to the materials that we used on the shelter that we recently constructed late last year over by the Windsor Park Playground. The shelter itself would look almost identical to that one, be a little bit shorter. It may have a different roof pitch that would match the actual pavilion roof pitch itself. The roof would be metal. The actual supporting posts would be 8x8 cedar, exactly like the ones that we've used over at the shelter or picnic shelter by the playground. There would be a cement pad poured, and it would be well lit with just a nicely finished stained wood on the underside. So as far as maintenance goes, very little other than some periodic staining for wood that is required.
Sounds. Thank you. It sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Braithwaite?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Mr. Hidley, in your report, well, first off, again, let me say that we're, again, fortunate to have organizations and individuals want to give items of this value to our municipality, so thanks to both of them. In your report, you talk about it would be approximately 200 man-hours to construct the shelter. And I'm wondering if you have a dollar figure that goes along with that, because later on in your report you talk about an in-kind labor and equipment would be approximately $5,000, but I wasn't sure if that was the 200 man-hours or not.
Mr.
Yeah,
Hidley?
thank you, through the mayor. Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Yes, that does. The $5,000 reflects our contribution to the project in labor.
Thank you. And then you also talk about the additional $1,200 to set aside annually, funded by taxation, for maintenance and life cycle replacement costs, which is prudent for us to do. But again, I wonder if this item would fall into the same category as a piece of art or a bench or something like that, where we do require, I believe it's a 10% funds, or fund of the value, I guess, of the item for maintenance, etc. So perhaps you can touch on that.
Mr. Hidley?
I suppose it could, but I do anticipate the longevity of the building to be 20 to 25 years. At that time, just understanding the life expectancy of the various pieces there, some may need to be replaced, but certainly the planning there is looking at a replacement down the road. I don't know if you remember that the old shelter that was at Windsor was eventually fell down or didn't fall down, but had to be taken down and wasn't replaced. But it wasn't considered at that time, and we felt that that we could easily we could manage to certainly construct the shelter in and itself just in-house with existing staff, but no, that's just the estimate of cost down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So perhaps that's a question that comes back to council at a different time, is then on items like this that are donated to the municipality, should we be asking for a little bit of extra in there like we do for art and for benches to put towards maintenance for an item like that? That's something perhaps we can talk about at our strategic planning.
I agree. It's really a policy discussion more than it is particularly on this one item. So thank you for raising that, Councillor Braithwaite. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Patterson?
Councillor Zelka?
And then so I have Councillor Patterson and Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Mr. Hidley, and thank you for the report, Mr. Hidley. Could you just help me understand it? You refer in the report to instead of a buy a brick or a plaque program, that the donors will be sought and at a variety of dollar levels, and that there would be a permanent plaque installed. Could you just perhaps elaborate on that? Is that one plaque with a list of names, or is it many small plaques with lists of names? Perhaps if you have any information you could share, that would be helpful.
Mr. Hidley?
Sure. Thank you through the mayor. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. It really depends on the volume of donors that we receive for the actual material costs for the shelter itself. I know of one donor that's interested for $3,000, for example. So the actual plaque layout itself depends on the volume of donors that we put towards material costs.
Thank you. Councillor Zelka?
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Okay, and thank you through to staff for an excellent report. First question is, when the design of this structure is, finished the design and mocked up, will this come back to council for review with respect to design and siting and placement?
I don't believe that normally would, but Mr. Hidley, is that a plan for it to come back?
Thank you, Your Worship, and Councillor Zelka. It was not a plan. The shelter in and itself will just be on the northwest side of the current daycare, close to the elm tree, and the actual how it'll look architecturally is almost identical to the one that is over by the playground at Windsor Pavilion.
And is it expected to be approximately the same size as the one near the tennis courts that was just built recently?
A little bit shorter, about 8 feet shorter.
Okay.
I'm sorry, was that shorter or longer? I didn't get that.
Shorter.
Okay, shorter. And I'm looking at Google Maps right now at Windsor Park Pavilion in the satellite view. You say it's the northwest end. I think that there's a apparently a bit of a garden of some sort there near the bicycle racks. Is it intended to be in that area right beside the building, or is it intended to be closer to Windsor Road?
No, it's supposed to be just where you refer to, Councillor Zelka. We have currently put a piece of playground from Carnarvon Park there for the daycare, which I may say is well used. But that is the location that we have planned for it.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask with respect to possibly the property. I don't know. I'm just imagining what could possibly go wrong. You know, because this is actually wonderful, and I think it's a very lovely addition to Oak Bay in general. This is a rather dark park, and I'm sure the dark principles will be used going forward. But I do also note that if I remember correctly, the bathroom in Windsor Park Pavilion is a 24-hour bathroom. Is that correct?
No, the bathroom is open and we just changed the hours of the bathroom because we were having some issues with people using the outdoors as a bathroom. So the bathrooms are open now from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we also improved the lighting around the exterior of the building.
Okay, so I guess related to that, I was wondering, what if, you know, just here we have to, since this won't be coming back to council, I guess I'll have to ask all the what if questions right now. What if someone wanted to use the building as a sleeping structure? What would we do in a situation like that?
Assuming that they're shaped like a bicycle, can fit on the rack. Mr. Heidley?
It's a difficult question to answer, Councillor Zelka. There's an individual sleeping down there now. So what we have done in that particular case is notified the Oak Bay Police, and they keep an eye on things.
Okay.
But I really couldn't say that somebody wouldn't use it as a shelter. They can sleep under the overhangs of the buildings now anyway, and it sometimes do.
Okay, listen, I very much appreciate your forthrightness, and thank you so much for sharing the extra information. I'm fine to support this.
Thank you. Are there any other discussions, comments? Councillor Braithwaite?
Sorry, just one other question through you to Mr. Heidley. Mr. Heidley, are the donations going through the municipality or through the Community Association of Oak Bay?
Mr. Heidley?
They would go through the Community Association of Oak Bay and then come to the municipality. So once the funding has been raised, that's when we would move towards purchasing the materials.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. So I'm ready to move the recommendation. Yeah, I'll move the staff recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just take this opportunity to point out that I, too, am very, very grateful that we have organizations like the Community Association of Oak Bay that are willing to fundraise for a project of this type. I am of the mind and of the view that in the future, these types of projects should not be the responsibility of the community to fundraise for, but should actually be funded as part of infrastructure upgrades. This is infrastructure for the community. And it is, if the community is to meet its commitments in declaring a climate emergency, modal shift, transportation is a key part of that. So I am very grateful for the donation. I'm definitely in support of the motion. But I would point out once again that infrastructure for supporting active transportation is laid out specifically as a need in Oak Bay's active transportation strategy, which is, as far as I'm aware, still on the books and still an applicable document for this community. So I'm definitely in support of this particular initiative. In the future, I would like to see us, the district, taking on the responsibility of creating this infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Any other discussion on this motion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Councillor Zelka? Councillor Zelka?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We now come to the items that were just dealt with at the Committee of the Whole. So item number 7, upland setting and design for 3020 Lansdowne Road.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
So this is move approval of this the setting and design. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Councillor Zelka?
In favor, thank you.
That passes. Item number 8, supplement siding and design, 2727 Dover Road.
Move approval of siding and design.
Moved and seconded. It's a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Councillor Zelka.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. And item number 9, upland setting and design, 2460 Cotswold Road.
Move approval of siding and design.
Moved, and is there a seconder? Yep, seconded, thank you. Any other discussion? This is the recommendation out of the Committee of the Whole from earlier tonight. Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any, Councillor Zelka.
In favor, thank you.
And those opposed? Councillor Appleton opposed. Thank you very much. Item 10 is struck to, or been shifted to January the 11th. So look forward to seeing that on that date. Up next, we have new business reports from other committees. Is there any new business? Report from the Capital Regional District. The Transportation Committee has been created, or will be created, so that the details to be worked out. But there was a Committee of the Whole at CRD last Wednesday, that examined the issue of transportation planning for the region. And so a committee is being struck to look at a shared approach from provincial, transit, biking, provincial highways, municipal, look at transportation a bit more holistically. Everything from best practices, grants, and right through to governance structures. So we'll see how that works. There's a direction given to staff as well to go away and come back, and then the committee being struck on that as well. Wanted to let you know, although I'm sure you do, that for the community on the Oak Bay Lodge, it came to the hospital district as an update. So the update included 2 things. One, just an update that there is an RFP out right now to hire a construction manager. That person will be undertaking an RFP for the deconstruction of that building. That'll be happening throughout first, second, third quarter, probably next year. The hazardous material assessment is already underway. And the second part was just that the public consultation will also be starting early in next year. And there's 2 significant timeframes or chunks that's being done in. So just when that becomes public, trust me, we'll all know. But I certainly would like to encourage the community as broad, not just Oak Bay, but also the broader community to give some impact or feedback. And I'm going to I'll go around the table for other reports. Wastewater, the sewage treatment plant is now up and running, and the cutover is officially happening. The official announcement will happen this week, but there's been no hiccups or changes to that timeline. And I just wanted to share with you that we had 2 reports, one from the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority and one from the Vancouver Airport, which they're required to do annually to the CRD board. And pretty grim stories, both of them. Both have seen really substantial losses in terms of revenue, in the neighborhood of 80-90% for both. So really have struggled this year to accommodate those impacts as they've gone forward. So just sharing that with you as well, just I think it's of regional interest. That concludes the CRD update, and I'll go around the table for other verbal reports. And Councillor Green, you had your hand up.
I just had a question for you. Excuse me, in a comment, you mentioned the proposed demolition of Oak Bay Lodge, and back to Councillor Braithwaite's and my own concern. I'm hoping that the CRD will provide oversight around the demolition waste management aspect of that building. I know there are potentially hazardous waste there, but for whatever can be salvaged or recycled, I would highly encourage that. So perhaps you could represent that on our behalf. Thank you.
No, thank you. Actually, that conversation already happened at the table, and part of the RFP process is that expertise is to bring that to maximize the reusability of the materials that are going to come down out of that building. Are there any other reports from other committees? I know we're winding down the year here, so I didn't expect a lot. Councillor Zelka, anything from you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not in terms of committees or commissions, but I do have something to share about the Rotary Club, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, I just wanted to do a shout out to the Rotary Canada flag subscriptions that are now open for 2021. They've had an excellent fundraiser across Oak Bay, 573 subscribers to their program, and this is the system or the program that puts Canada flags throughout Oak Bay for all the holidays. Anyway, it's open to new subscriptions if anyone wishes to subscribe. And Joan Peggs happens to be the person organizing that, so shout out to her. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Already put our order in for that. So yes, thank you. I don't see any other hands up, so we'll go to the bylaw section. We have 4 in front of us today. We've done a first, second, third reading for them of all of these, so we're into the adoption phase. So if I can just get someone to read out the recommendations, the motions in full on these, just because they're bylaws.
I'll move that the refuse collection and disposal amendment bylaw number 4371, amendment bylaw number 4775, 2020 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Councillor Zelka?
In favor.
Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. That passes. Item number 13. Next one.
I move that the Advisory Planning Commission Land Use Bylaw number 4771, 2020 land use be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in... Oh, sorry, Councillor Green. My apologies.
That's okay. I just want to clarify, I will be supporting adoption of this bylaw this time and appreciate very much Ms. Williams' response to the legal question I had around age qualification. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. And thanks for that. In case, it's always helpful when you move votes from one step to the other, just to put on the record why. So I appreciate you doing that. And don't see any other discussion around the table. So all those in favor? Councillor Zelka?
In favor.
Thank you. Any opposed? So all hands up, so I guess that's a no. Item number 14.
I move that the Advisory Planning Commission Design Panel Bylaw number 4772, 2020 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Zelka, you will speak up if you want to speak up. I don't hear any discussion. I will call the question then. All those in favor? Any, Councillor Zelka?
In favor, thank you.
All right. Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. And item number 15.
I move that the Council Procedure Bylaw number 4740, 2020 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Appleton?
Question?
Yeah, I'll go to Councillor Appleton, then Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a comment, and I may be stealing your thunder here, but I would be remiss in not acknowledging the massive amount of work and all the time and effort and revisions and various discussions that have been managed by staff to arrive at this point. This is going to be essentially a very quick and quick motion to pass without very much to market, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the work that staff put in to get this thing to where it is now, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton, and absolutely a sentiment shared. Councillor Zelka?
Oh, thank you so much, Chair. I'll echo those congratulations to staff for a massive amount of work. Sometimes it definitely felt like we were trying to determine the number of angels that dance on the head of a pin, but on the other hand, with this level of detail, our meetings should definitely move more quickly, maybe. So just a general question through you to staff. What will be some of the most visible things we'll notice different as a result of passing this council procedure bylaw? From the public's perspective.
You know what? I think I'm not going to answer that question right now. I think what we are planning to do is to provide a sort of a briefing sheet out publicly so that the public and council, for that matter, can have a good sense of what's changing, what's new, and why. Because I think that's you kind of stole my thunder there. I was just going to finish this off by a little, no, it's all good. I think it's worth noting the reasons why. So if you don't mind, Councillor Zelka, I'll just say that in my remarks before I call the question.
That's fine. I just wanted to, I appreciate the fact that you're going to say something, so I definitely want to encourage you, because once we pass this, the world will change. So, I defer to your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the world will change sounds much more dramatic than I think this probably will be, but I think it strikes to the heart, I think, of the reason that we spent so much time and energy as council and particularly by staff. A lot of expertise and knowledge and years of experience from our staff have gone into this, bringing best practices from across the province and even around the world. And I think it's important, I'm not to get into any of the details, but to remember why, and it's to ensure that when we're making decisions, we have all the fullness of input from the community, from staff, from our advisory bodies, that we provide clear guidelines as to when and where and why people should be providing input, so that there is the highest levels of accountability and transparency in everything that we're doing at this table. And there's probably more reasons that I can't think of off the top of my head, but I think fundamental to us doing a good job and for future councils doing a good job and having the structures in place that support those best practices by default, I think this is a major step forward. And I know it'll take some getting used to. We'll probably have a few stumbles and probably will be changing it at least once in the next year or so as we review what the impacts have been. But there's no doubt in my mind it's a substantial improvement over what we have and really is fundamental to us doing a good job as a council. So I don't mind the thunder being stolen. I really appreciate all the councillors expressing their appreciation, because I think those of us who have seen it have seen this huge number of hours of work. Probably watching right now is Ms. Hopkins, who is really instrumental, has moved on, but was instrumental, and we've had a number of people working on this over the course of a couple of years. Really a primary goal of this council was to make sure that we're doing things to the highest possible level. So yes, shared thank yous, and we hope that this will make a significant improvement over time to embed those best practices in what we do on a day-to-day basis. So that was my rant for the end of this, the last meeting with the current procedures bylaw. If this passes, I don't see any other discussion. I will call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Zelka?
In favor, thank you.
All right, that passes. So thank you very much. All I need now is a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Councillor Zelka?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And we have a special meeting of Committee of the Whole for specifically around the Heritage Commission terms of reference. So that's happening on Thursday, but at 6 p.m. And we look forward to seeing you all there. But certainly, thank you very much for all the work this year. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Participant exiting.
Eric.